Hey, folks, I'm Objectively Dan, and let's just start with the obvious, okay? Freedom of religion doesn't mean freedom to force your religion onto everyone else, okay? And yet, in the year of our Lord 2025 in America, it still feels like we're still trapped in this never-ending feedback loop where certain religious groups are trying to convert the Constitution into their personal holy scripture. Public schools are supposed to be places for learning, not pulpit extensions where evolution gets tossed out the window because someone's pastor said it made them feel icky. And what's more, in the political sphere where faith somehow turns into a cheat code, there's this continual push for regressive policies. It's not a coincidence that laws restricting reproductive rights, LGBTQ freedoms, and even basic science education often comes up with a Bible verse slapped onto it like it's some sort of divine permission slip. Well, newsflash, quoting Leviticus doesn't make it law, and nobody elected the Old Testament to Congress. And if you disagree with me, feel free to call in because the show is starting right now. Hello, I'm Objectively Dan. This is Truth Wanted, the live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time, where we talk to people about what they believe and why. And if you want to call us, you can do that. The number is 512-991-9242, or you can call through your computer at tiny.cc/calltw. We have open lines, and we are ready to take your calls. Truth Wanted is, of course, a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And every single week, I always have a special guest with me. This week is no different. It is Jim Barrows joining me today in the, I would say studio, but we haven't been in the studio in a while, Jim. I think the last time you and I were on together was in the Atheist Community of Austin studio, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
It has been a minute, but yeah, I think that was the last time we were sitting at the table. So
Jim, for the folks who don't recognize you, who haven't seen your face, who are you and what do you do?
I am a host on Atheist Experience, a couple other shows I do guest appearances on. And that's about it.
Yeah. Sounds right to me. I'm trying to think, Atheist Experience host, a fellow showmate, fellow host of a wonderful Atheist Community of Austin network. So happy to have you on with me on this Friday night, Jim. I know this isn't your usual time to be live, but I appreciate it nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, you said earlier that we didn't elect the Old Testament into Congress, but I will say we did elect some old testicles, and that may be part of the problem.
Nice. Thank you for that mental image, Jim. It's really cool. Really cool. Unfortunately, you're going to have to leave now because that was absolutely disgusting and I hate it. So anyway, obviously, coming in hot today because how can we not? I mean, got to come in hot every single week in the current world, in the current year, because things are happening and there's like so many things. It's like you can't even keep up. Like there was that one guy that got arrested for like praying in what was it? In one of the buildings. I can't remember in which building. In the Rotunda. That's where it was, the Rotunda. So people are saying, this guy gets arrested, but not some of the folks at January 6th. I don't know. Lots of crazy stuff going on, and none of it's good. None of it's good.
So much of today, you really need to critically think and really need to spend some time on Google to check sometimes, because just so much BS that we really need some truth right around now, and we'll need some for quite some time because it's going to suck. And they're saying the quiet parts out loud. Yeah, truth is wanted.
That's true. Like what I'm passionate about and what I think is going to be absolutely critical in these next couple of years is folks like us who are talking about some of these things, because like this is really our time to shine, the things that we always talked about, the fears that could happen, the encroachments of religion in government are realer than they've ever been in my life, in my life at least. Right. So I can't speak for people in other places, but for me, it's real. So,
and this is just despite religiosity in the U.S. going down
Yeah.
right? I think this is just the last kicking and hopefully it's the last kicking and screaming we'll hear for quite some time. Because the last time we had things like this happening, tariffs and the like, the Republican Party was out of power for 60 years. So hopefully we'll see that same thing and things will get better. I mean, things will get better. It's hard. I won't say that. They can only get better from here, right? I mean, they could get worse before they get better, but at some point they have got to get better.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on who you are, what your immigration status is. I mean, I don't know, Jim. I don't know. It's tough right now. That's the other thing too. I can't even find the words. I've been talking about this for weeks now, but it's been hard for me even to find the words of encouragement. Right? We're always trying to look for the bright spot in these kinds of things, and it's a harder and harder task every single week. It really is. And I don't know. At least there's some people waking up to it. I think this is the conclusion I came to last time I kind of ranted about this, right? Like this is going to wake some people up, and waking people up is a good thing, right? So
well, I think we're starting to see that. I mean, and information flows freer and faster. Whether that information is true or not doesn't seem to matter. But it seems more people are interested in true information. And so people are starting to realize, oh boy, things are, it's easier to check the lies too. So that helps. But there's so many.
This is the problem. It's Brandolinis Law, though. You familiar with Brandolinis Law?
No, not at all.
Brandolinis Law is the simple axiom that the amount of energy needed to refute bullshit is an order of magnitude bigger than the need to produce it, right?
Yeah.
That's where we're at. The strategy right now has been fill them with so much bullshit you can't keep up. And it's working. That's the scary part. It's absolutely working. I mean, you can fit so many lies into a 60-second TikTok that it could take you an hour-long YouTube video essay to deconstruct. But who has the time for that? Who's doing it?
We see that all the time in refuting anything an apologist says, right? The amount of time you spend doing the research far exceeds the 30, 45-minute, hour-long video you're doing in response to someone else's 45-minute video, because they don't have to spend as much time doing the research and going, hey, no, this is what's really going on. Yeah. We see that all the time. It is harder. It takes longer to debunk everything that goes on because you want to be correct. You want to cite your sources. You're interested in the truth. And you could always tell when an apologist is back into apologist mode is when they stop citing sources. Same thing with, talking to, right-wing conservative evangelicals. Once you get them, you go, no, that's not the data, or you point out that the data doesn't support them. They just start pontificating and screaming at you because it's all they've got left. Yeah. But it takes so long.
It does take so long. And I'm just worried about, with all the new information that is out there, there's also just new points of radicalization for people as well. We're seeing that as well. And I don't know, okay, before we always do sound checks before we get started on the show. I always like to read a random Wikipedia article. I found the Wikipedia article for bryology. Bryology. You know what bryology is, Jim? Because I didn't.
No.
It's a branch of botany concerned with bryophytes, which are mosses, liverworts, and hornworts. Okay, this is information I didn't need to know, but now I do know it. I have access to it, and it's great, and I can figure out more if I want to. What a privilege. What a great time to do that. And yet, for some reason, nobody else can do that. It's like we give everybody the tools. And what have we created here? I don't know. It's pretty monstrous.
Yeah. And the more you know, the easier it is to see how things are connected and to draw inferences from that. Like I was having a conversation about AI and programming. And I was pointing out that this particular tool is just a front end to AI tools.
Yeah.
And that at some point, the AI companies are going to stop wanting third parties stealing their revenue. And they're like, well, no, that won't happen. I was like, that's exactly what happened with media, right? Paramount and Sony and all the other big movie companies MGM didn't care, or didn't mind Netflix and Hulu, some of the other streaming companies streaming their stuff until the last 10 years. And they all want you because now that's where the money is, right?
Yeah.
Disney wants you paying their 5, 10, 15, $20, whatever it is, rather than paying Hulu and Hulu paying those guys. So if that happens there, why aren't we expecting it here? And you can start drawing those kinds of conclusions the more you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't understand people's not wanting to go out and learn some stuff and figure some stuff out.
Because figuring stuff out takes time. Bullshit's free.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's what it is. To get a good news source, first of all, you got to pay money for it, for a subscription fee. Meanwhile, you can find some Reddit posts on r/conspiracy theories explaining, the alternate history of the moon landing. And then I don't know. That's it. Now you're starting to get radicalized into other bullshit, right? Like it's I don't know. It's an impossible problem.
Did I tell you about when we used to go to that Indian food restaurant after the show? We had a moon landing conspiracy theorist who's also an atheist. We're standing around outside talking like we normally do, and he started going on about it. And he said, where did the moon landing? Where's the moon lander? The moon rover on the module? It wasn't there, and all of a sudden it is there. There's no place for it. And I was like, okay. And it was literally the first thing coming up when in Google. First thing was the plans for the moon lander that showed exactly where the rover and how the rover was stored. And it's like he didn't even bother doing a simple Google search on something he was adamantly true about. And I mean, it shut him completely up because I was his big rant. And I was like, dude, I didn't even use Google Foo, right? This was just, I didn't have to dig. And so much of it you don't have to dig for.
It's true. No, a very close atheist person to me is the biggest Bigfoot believer that I know.
Oh, wow.
And is like real into it. And it's like, it's like their hobby almost. Like they want to go to one of those Bigfoot meetups and stuff someday. And it's just like, I don't know how that works, but yeah, I don't know. It happens to everybody. But before we move on, you were going to say something?
Go ahead.
Oh, well, I thought we should get to our comments here. So I think it's about that time. We have a segment, our We Want the Truth segment. Every single week, we are asking you folks at home a question or a prompt. And to introduce that is our very own Kelly Laughlin coming in hot. Kelly, what's happening?
Hey, how's it going?
Ready for this, Kelly? You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to go here.
Let's do it.
Last week, we asked, what conspiracy theories do you think could arise in the future? I think that's a really good one. And here are our 3 favorite answers. Number 3 from Godwin7. All Tesla cars actually run on baby tears.
Ooh.
That's a pretty good one.
Okay.
Interesting. I like the fact that he got the Teslas in there. That was pretty good.
Yep.
One of our recurring contributors to these, because he's got a really great sense of humor, Chuck Gatos. Future conspiracy. Black holes don't really evaporate. Hawking radiation is what you do when your nuclear reactor is over budget and you have to sell off some of your fuel.
Okay. All right. A bit cerebral
A little bit on that one.
All
and
right.
Number 1, Donald C. 1729. 1729. That was the year I was born. Future conspiracy theory. When we get to Mars.
I didn't know you were that young, Kelly.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy.
When we get to Mars, Mars must be flat. We see too far.
Yes. Gotta be.
We're just looking at the disc from the top of it.
We're just looking at the disc from the top. Yeah, 100%. I'm on board with it, and I'm already a believer. I am radicalized. Thank you for that, Donald C. 1729.
It's a good one.
What is the prompt for this next week, Kelly?
It is name something that people worry too much about.
Okay. All right, folks. You know what to do. Leave a comment below. Not in the chat, mind you. Leave it in the comment section and tell us, Name something people worry too much about. And if your answer is really good, we might read it on next week's show. Thank you so much, Kelly. Appreciate it. We'll put you back. We'll chain you back into the dungeon now.
Put me back in my cage.
Yeah, we'll put you back.
Wait. They haven't changed the paper yet. Give me a second.
Yeah. We'll figure that out after the show. We'll get you something there. But anyway, thank you, Kelly, for your contributions to today's program. And folks, just a reminder, we have open lines right now. That means we are waiting for you to call into the program. I have Atheist Experience's very own Jim Barrows hosting with me today. And I'm sure he'd love to talk to you. I know he was saying that he wants to talk about flat Earth stuff. I haven't had a flat Earth call in a minute, but surely
there's got to be one or two still trying, they're all over the internet. And they just had that big setback with a bunch of flurfers going down to Antarctica and seeing that the sun does in fact revolve around there, proving that the Earth is in fact round.
Yeah, we talked about it, and the callers that called in told us that, of course, everybody involved in that documentary was a paid actor.
Right. So, except that they're all well-known flurfers.
Not paid
I
actors.
think one of them actually just said, "I give up. There's no evidence." I mean, that proved it
fakers.
to me. And
they're all paid, Jim. They're all paid. None of them are real people.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
That's the frustrating thing, because it's like, okay, man, like at least show me a pay stub. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're gonna keep insisting something else, I don't know.
Right.
Back it up.
Well, I want to need to go to one of these protests and get paid because I need that extra paycheck. Apparently we're getting paid like $100,000 a piece, something like that.
That Soros money, I'm down for it.
Oh yeah. I mean, given how many people are protesting and how, just that makes no sense, but it doesn't have to make sense. No. But then again, you've got, you have people claiming that, 100 million Americans were saved from death by fentanyl recently because of all the fentanyl that's been stuck coming out.
That's a new narrative that I like. Also, the MS-13, being on the hand, a little defense of that, we're seeing photoshopped images being defended in real time in the White House.
Badly photoshopped images. It's
incredible.
Incredible. AI could have done a better job.
But that's what's really funny about the story is like everyone no, there's no way that they actually were supposed to be on the hand. Like it was supposed to just be like a caption to say what those symbols meant. But no, apparently a certain somebody actually does believe that those letters are on there, even though you and I could see. I mean, you didn't have to have somebody tell us that was Photoshop. Like you could see it, but people don't know the difference. They really don't. And I guess he doesn't either. But I don't know.
Well, do certain people on the right know what reality is? I mean, it seems like they really don't.
Sometimes no. They think Portland is half burned away. You know. In Chicago and all these other places. I mean, and that's another thing too. When increased online presence, not having a third space to go to, not having local communities means that people are getting more and more insulated, not just the young people. It used to be the worry. It was like, oh, all these young people are doing it. No, it's every generation of people is getting cooped up and getting their information from these particular sources. And they really do have a different world that they're living in, like the January 6th stuff, for example. How quickly, I mean, we brought that up earlier, but how quickly did the narrative turn on that when facts weren't in the favor of certain people? And now all those people are paid actors, but also weren't guilty of the crimes they did and should be pardoned. Like you get almost living it I don't know. Make sense.
There's video of them doing the crime, right? There's video of them beating police officers,
right? And
they still get pardoned.
Well, what I'm talking about too with that is, I talked to people when I was on Twitter at the time. People saying, no, these are CIA shills. These are federal agents. It's all real. Right, and then they get arrested and then they get pardoned. It's like I don't know. I don't know what's consistent in certain people's minds anymore.
Yeah, but, I don't get it either. Why do you hold on to a belief so hard in the face of facts. I mean, I know that it's a cognitive thing, right? It's a thing that human brains do. We know that, but still, it just doesn't make any sense to me to hold on to something that hard. And I've done it before about stupid stuff, but I mean, I'm always shocked at myself when I do, and I try not to, but still.
I think some people just aren't challenged enough. Honestly, I do, like, some people, they type about that stuff and they were real angry and real brave online, but then in real life they keep that shit to themselves. I think that's part of it too, and I think that's why they never get called out on some of that, because you can go to your subreddit of choice, you can go to your feeds or whatever that you like, and then go to your job, and then nobody has to know about all these kinds of awful ideas that you might have. And you never have to get called out on it. I don't know. I think that's part of it, but obviously it's a multifaceted problem.
Yeah, well, I think that also goes along with, it's easier to get, getting information is easier today than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Whether the information is true or not. And I don't think we have caught up as a society to value truth as much as we think we do, right? Because we do tend to value being the rebel, being the individual, at least in the US, more than we probably should. So there might be some of that going on too. I don't know. It just
I'll tell you
really,
what we need more bryologists in the world. I think, that's, where are the bryologists? How come you guys aren't calling into the show? I need to understand more about moss and lichens and things.
That would be
there must
nice.
be some sort of hidden truth there that we're missing.
Is it true that moss always grows on the north side of trees?
I would like to know that. I don't think it's true though, to be fair. Okay, yeah, I don't think so.
It'd be nice to talk about, right? Because it would be interesting, because the only way it could really happen is if moss had a high content of iron, high enough content in iron, and they're light enough to force them to kind of drift over to the north side of the tree.
See, everybody's talking about, being influencers and being, social media stars. Where's the bryologists? That's what I want to know. Why aren't we having a campaign for that?
There might be a bryology YouTube channel. That would be kind of cool.
You know what? Maybe we're just ignorant. Maybe they're getting like millions of views, and we're looking like,
We just had Kelly on, and someone's trying to talk Kelly into doing a YouTube channel on rocks.
Kelly does need to do a YouTube channel on rocks. I will subscribe so fast, and I would, Kelly, if you do it, I'll shill for your channel so hard, brother.
I think it'd be a good, nice thing for him to do.
I think so. I think we need to get into more positive hobbies that don't involve computers necessarily. That's like where I've been at. I don't know. Just thinking about it.
His opening logo could be, him just throwing rocks through windows.
Okay, I would actually pay Kelly money to throw rock, even if it's abandoned buildings. I would just want to see him just bust some shit. I'm so down for that. See, that's a market.
Different types of rocks, because I'm sure not every rock will penetrate a window the same way or shatter a window in the same way. So,
oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Like a Mythbusters thing. We're figuring out what is the best rock to use in protests if you want to cause the most damage. I don't know.
No. We don't want to do that.
We don't have to encourage people on its applications, but the science of it might be fascinating. I mean, we still want to know the material collisions.
You could get into knapping, making obsidian knives and rocks into knives and other tools and things like that, and what kind of rocks and why the rock. And it could Kelly, be a really cool show.
We got you on screen here. Kelly, you got any thoughts on this? You're muted right now.
You're muted, Kelly.
You're still muted, my friend.
I was talking like an angel there. When I was typing out, as you brought me on, I was typing out, is a brick a better missile than a regular old rock? So that's something we can look into the science of.
Yeah,
come on, man.
What kind of brick, right? Because there's different kinds and styles of bricks.
Right.
Different ways to make them. Same thing with like making mud buildings.
Ring. Oh, hang on 1 second. Hello, Adam Savage. Hey, I got a new project for you. I want you to meet my man Kelly.
The aerodynamics of protester missiles.
Yeah. Come on. Let's do a new channel where oh man, this is going so many different directions here. We help protesters figure out more effective ways of protesting. That's what we're about. Anyway, no, I don't know about that, but you should do a channel though, Kelly. Comment below if you think Kelly should do a channel.
Absolutely.
And encourage him for that. He's even got a name. What was the name you said you wanted?
Oh, that was for another thing. My other project, Kelly's Curiosities.
Kelly's Curiosities. Would that be 2 Ks on that?
No, because KK.
Yeah, KK. That's a little close to.
Yeah.
A little too close to 3. You don't really want to do that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, anyway. Good luck to you, Kelly. I wish you well in your endeavors. I really want to see it happen.
Actually, Dan, just real quick, when I was talking about doing my own show, my son suggested I do Kelly's Coffee Clutch, all Ks. And I was like, and I just looked at him and I said, think about that for 1 second. And it took me about 10. And I guess that'd be bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you could do, is there a type of rock that would rhyme or be a pun on the word hero? Because you could do like Kelly's Heroes.
Dang, that's interesting. That's an interesting idea.
Kelly, what's a rock that rhymes with Kelly?
Most of them end in ites. Ite or een.
Ite or eens?
Yeah, most of them are ites or eens.
Kellyites.
I'll have to look into that. That's an interesting one.
There's some potential there, Kelly. There's some potential. We'll let you do your market research, and we'll let you get back to put him back in the dungeon. Guards, seize him. Guards. Get him out of here. No, just kidding. Thank you, Kelly.
If he sees the sunlight for too long, he's gonna combust.
That's also a problem that we gotta watch out. That's why all the onions and garlic. We gotta keep some garlic above or behind us in the studio. That's just
he was born in 1785, so
Yeah, that was really funny that you had there about him being even younger. Anyway, folks, we should get to some calls because this is a call-in show. Once again, though, I have to stress we still have open lines. So if you still want to talk to us, you should definitely do it. Numbers on screen: 512-991-9242, or if you don't like calling through the phone, just do it through your computer, tiny.cc/calltw, and we want to talk to you. We want to see what's happening. But before we get to our first caller, Jim, I have to thank the patron of the week, because every single week I'm always giving a shout out to the folks on the Patreon for donating. And of course, I want to give a thanks to everybody that donates. But this week's patron of the week is going to be on the screen in just a second. It's Jason, all caps for that one. Thank you, Jason. And thank you to everybody that donates at tiny.cc/PatreonTW. If you want to become a patron of the week, go to that link and help the show out. We really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody that donates to the show. You guys rock. And with that out of the way, let's get to our first caller. We have James calling in from New York. James, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Not much. How are you, Objectively Dan and Mr. Jim Barrows? Quite the honor, sir. Been wanting to get on a call with you for a while. You were quite the inspiration to me. Help me out on occasion with my pardon the more. Help me out on many occasion with my deconstruction process.
Oh, fantastic. It's good to hear. That's awesome. Yeah.
That's great, James. Love to hear that. How could we help you today on Truth Wanted?
Yeah, wanted to talk about how social media helps with deconstruction.
Okay. Elaborate on that.
Well, I think this does get highlighted quite a bit when people talk about deconstruction, but they never put the nail in the head or in the coffin and say it was social media, because obviously people get turned on to shows like these and with the Atheist Experience and the ACA and Truth Wanted and the non-for-profits, your flagship show. And Dark Matter 2525, which was played a big part and a big role in my deconstruction process. When something that's geared toward causing people to become deconstructed or to go through that process, and it can be funny and engaging, I think it makes someone actually engage with the deconstruction process even more and cause them to get them talk, actually cause them to really question their beliefs in a more constructive manner.
Yeah.
I should say.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned Dark Matter 2525. He does great stuff. His just does some amazing cartoons, and his stories are entertaining. And yeah, I think that's exactly, things get recommended. You watch it because it's got a funny storyline or some funny cartoons. The next thing you know, you're questioning your beliefs especially with something like Dark Matter. He does some, with the stuff that he does, but also just watching shows and hearing people, you're not the first person and you're not going to be the last person who has watched the shows and heard the arguments and the counter arguments and began to, question whether or not what you believe is true. And it's awesome to hear all that kind of stuff. Or, we've got, what are we at, 25, 30 years now, something like that, worth of shows online right now. So yeah. And then everyone else is doing it as well, whether, and now you've got science communicators coming on board, like Gutsick Gibbon and, Neil deGrasse Tyson's had his stuff on for a while too. But there's, a bunch of biology people are on now, and you've got, other science oriented folks that are there, doing all that stuff. So yeah, it is, social media is definitely a game changer. I know, like, I have ADD, and listening to a talking head in school was one of the worst things possible for me. And yet I'll watch, Vice Rhino or Apologia, or a lot of talking heads, and it's far more entertaining to be on YouTube than it was in class. So, yeah, I think you're right. It's an important medium for doing that. How long have you been? Are you still deconstructing, or have you become an atheist?
I would consider myself an agnostic, atheist, anti-theist.
Okay.
With maybe a slight tendency to lean back to sometimes a lingering belief. But like in my head, it's kind of like Frodo, when Frodo is in the forest with Boromir, and Boromir tries to take the ring from Frodo, and he's using logic to do it. And Frodo says to him, "I know what you would say, and it would sound like wisdom, but for the heart of me." And I like when I'm in the moment and I go back to the old part of me that wants to believe in my former faith and former belief structure, I say like, oh, that all sounds like logic. Yeah, my doubts sound like logic, but for the heart of me, there's something romantic there that I'm trying to recapture and keep in my heart. And so I have to deal with that too. But that's just a part of the deconstruction process that will end in time, hopefully.
Right. And that's also why I think calling it a deconstruction is probably the best way to go about it, because you are deconstructing these beliefs over and over and over again. It's not just one time. And then re-examining, okay, once I stop believing this, what does that really, really mean? It's not unusual for, far right-wing Christians to be anti-gay and anti-LGBTQ, and all of a sudden, once they start questioning that, they start questioning the foundations for being bigots, and they realize they don't really have a good foundation to stand on there either. And it starts to affect a lot of things. I know when I got started, one of the things I read was about basic income guarantee. And that was kind of an eye-opener that actually works. Guaranteeing people a basic income, allowing them to go to school and still be able to live out on their own, and picking up a little bit of doing a better job of welfare than we do now is actually beneficial to society. That was the start of me deconstructing out of my right-wing views. So yeah.
There's a lot of people who escape cults, right? And you know, what versions of cults you could ever, you know, there's tons of different definitions, there's different ideas, but you know, I'm just talking in broadly commonly accepted kind of stuff, right? One of them being there was a cult called The Source, that in its heyday in the 70s. I saw a documentary on a few years ago, and they were doing interviews with people who used to be in the cult, and I was surprised by the number of people that really talked about how they miss those times. How, in fact, some of those times they said were in some ways some of the best times of their life. And you're thinking, what's going on? Because they're being obviously abused. They're having to work, you know, days on end without real pay, in menial labor, you know, just to fulfill the wishes of this cult leader and stuff like that. It's because they had a sense of purpose that they didn't get in the world after that. In a way, they felt a sense of belonging. There was a sense of community there. All these things are really powerful things that keep people in these ideas. You talked about the romanticism a little bit, and I instantly clicked with that because, you know, we're, as atheists, you know, we can ho and hum all day about how ridiculous some of the ideas are. But when you do have a concept of heaven that is positive in your mind, not dealing with the logical ramifications of it, or when you have a concept of a God that loves you and cares about you and is specifically interested in you and your well-being and the rest of your life, that is something that I'm not ever going to have again for the rest of my life, as long as I stay an atheist, right? Maybe I get close, maybe I can find a replacement if I really want to, but I'm not going to have that. And so there is a real trade that has to be done. And I think more people would be more honest with themselves if they realize those feelings that you get, those nice feelings that you have to trade away, are probably one of the biggest reasons why people don't make that jump, don't do that deconversion, because it's just too hard to leave. And that's a sad thing, but I think it's just a truth about people. I know those feelings are really hard for me to leave behind. It sounds like maybe they're a bit hard for you to leave behind too, James.
Yeah, they are. And it's also, for some reason, I'm reminded of the quote from Braveheart right now. And I hate to quote it, of course, but when William Wallace, you know, goes up to William the Bruce, and they're having that back and forth, and William Wallace says, "Does the man on the battlefield lose any less, risk any less?" And the Bruce says, "No."
Yeah.
You know. But I think sometimes the man who gives up his faith for a higher moral and ethical and ideal of truth gives up and risks more than the man who keeps his faith in his high, lofty castles in the skies above the rain clouds and the thunderstorms. Because we come to truth and we come to mathematics and science, and there's a lot of cold hard facts in mathematics and science.
Yeah, that level of acceptance is just kind of hard. You were talking about the military too. It's a similar phenomenon with folks who are leaving the military. You know, there's a lot of folks that talk about depression. They talk about how awful it is after they leave, because they leave that sense of structure, they leave that sense of purpose, they leave that sense of organization and higher purpose there. I mean, there's some similarities there, but we're ultimately social creatures. You can accept or reject as many philosophical propositions as you want at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, we're gonna socialize on some level. We're gonna be interacting and working with other people in some way, which is one of the reasons why I advocate for communities like the Atheist Community of Austin, because we do matter, because we do have to have places of refuge. And you know what? If somebody watches our shows for a couple of years and then says, "Oh, hey, I used to watch their stuff 10 years ago, and I were there when I needed it, and I don't watch it anymore," I hear that stuff all the time. And guess what? That's absolutely fine, totally fine. I'd much rather work in a place of activism where people can, you know, be there and be here in a place where they need it. And if they want to move on and do something else, you know, that's cool too. I don't know where you're at with your journey, James. Sounds like you're still thinking some stuff through, but it sounds like you've made a lot of progress for you. So hopefully you give yourself a pat on the back for that. Congratulations for the hard work that you've done to get to the place where you're at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for taking my call.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Anything else you want to share before we let you go?
Mr. Jim Barrows. Yeah, Mr. Jim Barrows, you were so great. Honored to talk to you one more time.
Thank you. The honor is mine, sir.
Do you still go to the back cruise every year or every now and again?
I am going to try and go to the back cruise this year. No promises at the moment, but we'll see how it goes.
Heck yeah.
Okay, maybe you'll see me there.
Alrighty, James. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your weekend and enjoy New York. You know, I've never been in New York. I need to go there sometime. It's one of the places.
I've been in the state. I haven't been in New York City, so I've been in the state. But
I've never really been northeast of the U.S. You don't know. It's far away from Texas. I'll have to make it happen one day. Anyway, the original point I had to, I wasn't there for a part of that conversation, but they first talked about was social media, which I think was also interesting. The purpose of social media, and you know, just to get my thoughts on that, I think that a lot of the work that comes with doing activist work, or even just you know, talking about these kinds of issues on social media, is the effect of normalization, right? So, you know, Dungeons and Dragons, if you think about that, your conception of Dungeons and Dragons, our cultural conception of Dungeons and Dragons in the 80s and 90s is very different from the 2020s, because in the 80s and 90s, it was high school band kids that were playing it. Now you've got celebrities of every rank going on major podcasts and getting millions of views.
Those kids in the 80s and 90s in band camp, and, you know, nerds like myself that were playing in the 80s, a lot of them grew up to be celebrities.
Sure.
And
that's part of it too.
Right.
Yeah. I'm using stereotypes here, right? I'm using stereotypes, but there is a change. Like the average Dungeons and Dragon player image in the head is a lot more, you know, mixed up now because of the work of that normalization that's just kind of happened and pervaded in the culture. And I think the same thing needs to happen with atheists. What are atheists known for? Being smarmy assholes on the internet. And you know what? That's also kind of true. But at the same time, it's all kinds of people from all works of life, right? With their own unique experiences. And I think that's important too, in posting about this kind of stuff. So anyway, I just want to share those thoughts.
Well, we talked about the community stuff that religious folks do really, really well. There's an 80-year-long study, and I think it's still going on, so it may be longer than 80 years now, done out of Harvard on happiness. Mm-hmm. The number one thing about that they've found is the number of people you know and talk to on a regular basis. And so you're talking about the military and churches. Well, there's a lot of people there. You may not know them all, but you're all there together. And you know a lot of them. And so you have lots of connections. And so, you know, happiness goes up. Same thing with the military. You know, you're in a company of 100 folks. That's a lot of people. And you're all doing things together. And so that continues to reinforce the bond. And that's something we need to do. You talked about earlier, you know, we need to be better as atheists at joining things, not just other atheists, but, you know, getting out and replacing those social bonds you may be losing as you step out of your church.
100% agree with you on that one, Jim. We have other callers that want to talk to us, so maybe we should do that. Before we do, though, quick announcement for you. One is just a reminder that we have the merch at tiny.cc/merchaca. If you want to get yourself some truth wanted t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, hats, you name it, it's all there. If you do, post about it. We'd love to see it. Like people rocking their stuff. I wear my truth wanted hoodie like all the time. It's definitely one of my favorites. So check that out if you haven't already. Another way to support the show is by sending us super chats. And I do have one that I need to read here from Bryce Aroni. Shout outs to Bryce Aroni giving $9.99, who said deconstruction can leave holes in your worldview, and in parentheses purpose, morality, etc. You want to fill ASAP. This is what makes the pull of religion so strong on the one deconstructing, which is very, very true. Religious people have the emotional high ground when it comes to this debate. And that works. It works for a lot of people. And it's hard for us to gain the high ground on that. It's hard. That's a working disadvantage that we always have to be in when we talk about these issues for sure.
And it's really weird because we're slowly gaining ground, right? The nuns are slowly gaining ground, and as religiosity goes down in this country, in other countries it's much lower, and so it's not as big a deal. But we're still not doing a good job, I think, of doing that. But also, I think in general, people have a hard time, going to meet up to find interest, or using Facebook to find interests that are local to them where they can go. And, a lot of people who are passionate about stuff, there are Christians, but when you're there at a car meet or scuba or playing Dungeons and Dragons or playing board games, there isn't a lot of religious overtones to those types of activities because people are passionate about that. They're focused on that. And so that's also something you can do too, to replace your social network when it gets ripped out from under you. Because that's one of the things that religions do to keep you in is to rip away your social network and make you feel alone, so you come back.
Yep. Definitely. Which is why you should join the fan-run Discord server of the. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, that's an option too. Just saying that there's this Discord server, not just ours, but others. Places for people to talk to on this kind of thing. But I do have to move on here, because one of the things I have to point out as well is, besides super chats, if you want to give us a super chat, we will read it on YouTube. We also have a membership button. If you hit the join button below, you'll get access to special chat emojis and early access to our YouTube shorts and clips. So definitely do that if you want to support us. Last but not least, though, I do have to thank the wonderful, stupendous, fantastic, amazing crew that helped make this show happen every single week. Whether it's Canine, Feline, or Hominid, they're all there, and they're all making this show happen. Thank you so much, crew. You guys are amazing for that. And with that out of the way, it is time to get to our next caller with what I think will be an interesting discussion. We have Bagel calling in from Canada. Bagel, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Hey, how's it going, guys? So nice to call you. 2025, Dan, how you doing, buddy?
Doing fantastic, Bagel. Thanks so much for calling in. I think you have an interesting topic here. You want to know about separating the art from the artist. What a topical thing. Everybody's always talking about this. Tell me your thoughts on this, Bagel.
All right. So for me, well, I got to say hi to Jim first, too. Jim, you're...
Oh, yeah. Say hi to Jim. Get your pleasantries out of the way, please.
Yeah, we're definitely have a little bit of a delay, but that's cool. So it was pretty clear to me. Some piece of media or art popped on at our home, and my wife was like, "Oh, he did this or something," right? And I was like, "Okay, I can separate the art from the artist." And she just said, "I can't." And I was like, "Okay, but I don't think there's anything really wrong with it, right?" So I guess I have a pretty good argument either way, which she presented a view to me that I didn't quite see. And let's just say that there was a music artist named Jar Smelly, and he liked to, do inappropriate things with minors, right? But he still crushed it when he's saying, "I believe I can fly," right? And sorry, I'm a little bit nervous, but my wife was like, "Well, what if someone did that to your daughter?" And it's like, I don't have a daughter, but they're like, and then would you put his music on later that night, when you went home, and just be separated from it? And it's like, well, show a little empathy and put yourself in those shoes. Now you can't listen to it, right? But my argument is like, if you go to an art gallery and every artist's name is covered by a piece of tape, and it's like, oh, this piece of art makes me feel warm and fuzzy, and then you pull the tape back and it says Hitler, you did some pretty bad things. But I still like the painting, and it still made me feel warm and fuzzy, right? So can I hate it just because I know who made it?
Yeah.
I think for me, it's, can I separate the revenue stream from the artist, right? If I can separate the revenue stream, then I'm okay most of the time. There's a really popular author of a kid's or a young adult series that's made, is now a billionaire. And her world doesn't support her views outside of it, but everything all the media you consume ends up funding her. And so that's kind of where I don't watch any of it. I try not to fill those pocketbooks and reward her for her views, but still recognize that the movies
you watched the Cosby Show and you watched Seventh Heaven and stuff before you knew all the scandals and stuff, and it was just pure and good and lighthearted and fun,
mm-hmm.
right? So can you go back and watch those same episodes and have those same feelings, assuming that you got the content or owned the content before you knew about the controversy, right? But some people, I think that the corporations and the companies that associate themselves with said celebrities obviously want to cut ties, so it puts a bias towards, no, we can't separate the art from the artist, because their viewpoint is, I don't want anything to do to be associated with that. But as your normal consumer of art and media, is it ethical or logical or moral or?
I don't think there's a hard and fast answer to it, because you're not supporting that person's message, because very often the thing that makes them an immoral monster is not their art. And so, like, some things like Dukes of Hazzard hasn't aged well for me, especially living in the South as I do now. The Trader's flag on the car just doesn't do it for me. But then there's some other shows like Caddyshack. I remember really enjoying that as a kid. It was always on the TV version. So I recently started to watch it, and there's a simulated sexual assault on the beginning of it. And I'm like, nope, can't watch it anymore. We're done. Because the message is just wrong. And like I said, for me, I need to separate the revenue stream from the artist in order to enjoy a piece of art, providing that the art itself is not objectionable. And in many cases, that's possible, but in some cases it's not. I don't know that there's a hard and fast answer for it, though. It's an interesting topic to talk about.
Yeah, it's so difficult. So, like, there's so many elements to this, because we live in the year of our Lord, 2025, and we know more about every celebrity ever now than we've ever known ever. And that's given us problems, because, and especially in the 2010s, before every celebrity let their social media manager post all their posts, and everybody would just post all whatever thoughts came to their mind on Twitter. Turns out a lot of people had really dumb takes on a lot of things, and it continues to grow. Like an example for me is like Kanye West. I liked rap music growing up. Kanye West, amazingly influential artist on the industry. The industry is not the same without the contributions Kanye West has done. But Kanye West is a fucking Nazi, and is weird about it too. Like it's so blatant, it's comical. Like it's so bizarre. And so I can't even think about the guy anymore without thinking about his ridiculous, shenanigans that he's gotten up to, and just the absolute lunacy.
I'm at work and I got my headphones in, and Stronger comes on, and I'm just like, I'm bopping, and any kind of hate message that he portrayed, that's not the focus of what the content is, right? And I think Jim's example, you can find a lot of problematic media from the past, right? And if the actual art or media is the problem, then there's a difference in supporting it, right? But actors play roles, and painters paint paintings, and musicians make songs, right? But I think that as soon as you release that outside of yourself, it becomes a separate entity to yourself. And that's why I find it so easy to kind of disconnect it, because, they created it, but they took it from their brain and they just said, you know what, you guys have it, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the other problem with that, though. Here's the other problem with that, because Kanye West is what he is, right? And I'm, finishing my point here with this example, is that actual Nazis now use him and platform him and celebrate him for the things that he does. So he doesn't exist outside of that anymore. Like, he is part of that platform. Same thing with J.K. Rowling, right? People actively support J.K. Rowling because of her anti-trans views. Like people will actually go, and do that now. You almost can't even separate that art from the artist anymore when you're so actively engaged or involved. Now let's talk about like John Wayne, for example. John Wayne is a self-admitted white supremacist. Some people don't know that. Gave an interview, I think, in a Playboy magazine, just saying, yeah, I'm a white supremacist, super racist, whatever. John Wayne isn't making movies anymore. He's not exactly on the scene. Can I enjoy John Wayne movies now? I don't know. Are the movies going to his estate? There's these complicated, like Jim was saying, kind of revenue streams that get, or maybe it was you were saying, Bagel, revenue streams that come to it that complicate things. What if a Marvel movie that you like has no, Nazi actors, but the cameraman came out as a Nazi? Does that mean you can't support these movies? There's thousands of people that come into some of these productions, right? It gets so complicated so fast, it almost becomes meaningless in some way. What happens, what doesn't. But some things become so political, like J.K. Rowling, like Kanye, where you really almost can't separate it anymore. I can't think of Kanye without thinking of his Nazi stuff. I mean, I don't think anybody can. It's gotten too far, too much everywhere. So I don't know. Like Jim says, I'm not sure if there is a hard, concrete answer to this. I think it's always going to be up to subjective interpretation. But I know if somebody's saying, hey, I really like Kanye and I really like his music and his stuff he's doing, I'm going to be sus. You know what I mean? I'm going to be, taking a step back from that because I don't want to be friends with somebody who's like that.
What about this then? Some people could say that taking the position that I cannot separate the art from the artist is like the more virtuous position to take. And if I just take the position that I can separate the art from the artist, because they can't in their mind, they still kind of interpret it as like a deplorable stance or thing to do where, I think, again, it's a big gray zone and it's really, you can't prove one way or the other.
I don't think it's a moral issue. Yeah, I don't think it's a moral issue to separate the art from the artist. The moral question would be, what does that piece of art say, or what does the artist say? And the two things can be completely different. Like I said, we were talking about J.K. Rowling. The Harry Potter universe is very accepting of the different, and I think of the LGBTQIA community. And the actors seem to back that hypothesis up, and I think that you can make a good case of that in the books. And yet you have, J.K. Rowling saying these horrible, horrible things. Yeah. I think that the things she says personally and the things that her characters say could be completely different, even though they're technically coming from the same person. And so I guess it's just how much do you want to, or how much can you parse out and accept and not accept? Because even bad people say good things on occasion and do good things on occasion. And I think we have to reward them for doing the good things while also not rewarding them when they say or do bad things. Because the question becomes, how do you take someone like Dr. Krauss and the accusations he had? Do you wipe away his contributions to science because of his allegations? I think it'd be really, really hard to do. But should we? It's the same question to me as, separating the art from the artist as separating the science from the scientist. It's the same question.
I think it's like Dawkins too had like controversy or whatever, right? But people can't deny how much he contributed to, like, I guess, the movement or whatever, right? I'm not like a super Dawkins fan or nothing, but like, sure. I guess it was troubling to hear that he had some posts and some other controversy. But I mean, you can't really take away what he's already done in one respect just because he was being a dumbass in another or whatever, right?
Well, he's an evolutionary biologist, and he doesn't believe trans people exist. It's like, what?
That's the thing. You can't take away the contributions he's done, but you also can't take away the harm, right? That's the problem. Like the J.K. Rowling stuff, like, when the video game came out, that was a big deal, right? I like the movies. I never really got into the books, right? So it was kind of a non-issue for me. I wasn't going to get this game, but people at the time were asking me, are you going to get this game? And my response to this was, well, I have trans friends who don't want me to get this game, and I'm going to do this out of respect for them. So really for me, it was the people in my community, what I respect in their values. If this is meaningful for them, for me not to get this game and to not support it, then I'm going to do it. So again, that's a very individual, that's not a very, universal rule that you can take, but I am going to continue to do that, right? I'm going to listen to the people around me, how this affects them, how that matters to them. And because ultimately, like, that's going to be taking precedent, and if for some reason or another, if there's something that somebody's done that is doing active harm, and supporting them financially or otherwise in any way is going to contribute to them continuing to do harm, then I do want to stop that. Obviously, nobody's perfect, and we can't go back on the things we've already done, but I am going to continue to, stop supporting people and stop supporting artists that I don't think are worth support. Even if it's a drop in the bucket, I just think that that's the right thing to do. But yeah, it's a real tough one there, Bagel. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if I have any more thoughts on it. You know what I mean? I think I might be all thought it out, but it's been a pleasure calling. The reason I called you 2025, Dan, is because I'm really only up to 2022, Dan. I know I don't know you, but that's as far as I kind of know you. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Okay. I was wondering about that. I was like, I didn't know if there's some sort of meme about me or something. I'm 2025, Dan, but there you go.
A couple blank years that I'm looking forward to filling. So it's kind of wild because, I put you guys on as a podcast at work, and I'm working for 8 hours, and I hear you guys talking to me in the live call, and I'm kind of, thinking to myself, like, almost like I'm listening to the podcast at work, and it's like, wait, I'm actually part of this conversation. I should probably talk and stuff,
Hell yeah. And now you're really part of the conversation. And now when you catch up, you can go listen to this episode and be like, oh yeah, that's me.
You know what? I called in. It's so cool. I'm part of Truth Wanted Canon now. But
that's right.
Yeah, exactly.
When I actually had the opportunity to talk to, I talked to Kelly Laughlin and John the Skeptics. So, hi to those guys. And as excited as I was to talk to them, I was equally saddened that I didn't catch you, Mr. Dan, on the day that I did. But, it was a blast phoning the last time, and I don't know if I'll come again, but it's always a fun experience.
It was all part of the plan, Bagel. It was all part of the plan. Now you're here, and you've made an indelible mark on Truth Wanted's history. So, take with that as well. And then when you have to cancel me later on, then you can say you disavow me and you regret your appearance on the show or whatever, in your future political career in office or whatever.
From the artist.
Yeah. Separate the art from the artist. Yeah. For whatever heinous shit I get into. I don't know.
I'm still listening. You do what you got to do. I'm still listening. So don't worry about me.
Thanks, Bagel. Appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. And thank you so much for the great conversation. Hope to hear from you again in the future. And hope those other episodes of Truth Wanted still hold up. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I haven't gone back to the 2022 catalog in a while. Maybe I said something that I've regretted. Yeah. I don't know. Who knows?
We probably all have said something on this show that we have regretted or has been taken out of context.
Yeah.
Or we didn't put enough context on.
Yeah. That's also easy to do for sure.
Yeah. Because sometimes the context only lives in our head and we don't express it very well. So
yeah.
We have a caller who wants to talk to us about doing that exact same thing.
Well, yeah, I want to talk to this. I want to talk to, actually, no, not this caller. I want to take that caller back. Let's go to different caller here. I want to talk to, there we go. I think it's correct. Is it Caleb from Wyoming? Please correct me if I'm wrong.
It's Caleb. I was a little, I guess, nervous first time calling, and I kind of misspelled a pseudonym. So
no problem. That is okay. Caleb, welcome to Truth Wanted. You are live with us. Yeah. How are you doing? Feeling a little better?
Oh yeah. I'm a long time listener, first time caller. So just
great.
Got a little nervous.
Great.
Fantastic.
Well, no reason to be nervous. We are absolutely here to talk to you. So I see that you did put in here that you wanted to try to figure out how to keep from being in an echo chamber with certain topics that have nuance. That's an interesting thought there. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I'm from the great state of Wyoming that some people don't believe exists, but it's also a very politically one-sided state. So a lot of the beliefs here are very hardcore Christian, hardcore science denying and stuff like that. So like a lot of the big topics, I have no problem with. Evolution exists. I don't believe that there's a God. I, believe in trans rights. That's actually one I'll get to in a second. That, out here is a very touchy topic to go into. But with some more nuanced stuff like, say, GMOs or, we're a big coal country out here, so the use of coal and the negative effects of it. Most people out here, anytime I try to bring stuff up, they just go into how wrong I am. And I understand from their side, they're in an echo chamber. All that they hear is, how Christian everything should be, how anti-science a lot of the stuff is. I'm not going to get into political because I understand nonprofit organizations and stuff like that. But how I'm just trying to make sure that as myself, I'm not catching myself in an echo chamber, especially with like YouTube algorithms and Google algorithms and such. If I'm looking up a topic, it automatically starts bringing me right back into that same topic and my standpoint on that same topic. So I guess just, again, first time calling might be all over the place a little bit, but just trying to figure out the best way to make sure that I'm taking the proper approach to making sure that what I feel is the correct and scientific approach is the right way to do it.
What a great and noble pursuit there, Caleb. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. If everybody in this country had the same idea as you, we'd have less problems in the world. We really would. So I have a degree in communication studies, which is laughably useless for most people in most situations. But this is the one thing that I can kind of talk about a little bit. And I'll give you a little secret here. One of the ways that it has helped me in terms of understanding echo chambers, understanding news sources, a lesson I learned from my media studies classes in college. Before I was in college, I didn't really read news. Really? I mean, I read headlines every once in a while, but I didn't have a consistent habit of reading the news. But having a consistent habit of reading the news and being taught that gave me a better insight into how news production works and how the actual processes are made and what the market of news looks like. And I'll give you an exact thing of what I mean and what you can do in practice for yourself is that for every news story you see, for every find a news story at least once every week, right? Something that's happening everywhere, everybody's talking about it, and find 5 different sources talking about that. 5 different ones. We had to do like 3 for class. Every single week, we had to pick a news story, and we had to find at least 3 or 5 different news articles talking about it, and we had to write about those different perspectives. And I did not realize how big of a difference it could be for everything that's talked about. Most sources, first of all, in the news come from AP. A lot of them aren't even writing their own articles. They're taking articles and saying, oh, from the AP. You'll see that for like New York Times and other places, right? Some of the big ones. And also, especially now, you'll see more partisan reporting for particular issues. Fox News always gets brought up as a big offender of this, right? Particular story either won't be emphasized enough on some networks or the phrasing or writing styles will be different. So honestly, finding a story and examining that story from different news perspectives is going to be so helpful for you to learn what happens when a new news story breaks out. Because I'll see stuff that comes in about the current administration, and I still have to be skeptical about, okay, this is painting a very negative light on this guy that I already don't like and is probably up to some heinous evil shit, but I need to figure out if this is real because I've seen people misreport information on my side of the aisle too, right? And it happens more than you might think on that as well. And that's when people get their sort of cynicism about the news. They say, well, it doesn't matter. How can you can't trust anything? It's not necessarily true. There are things you can trust, the processes that go into this, but it does mean you have to take a more active attempt. You can't have a passive attempt at absorbing information. If you're really committed to this, right, about not being in echo chambers and wanting to be more objective, wanting to be more open and understanding to what's happening around you, find multiple news sources for every big story that you read. At least practice it just for a little bit, and that's going to help you. That's my biggest tip I could offer you about this, honestly. But I know Jim's got some stuff to say. What do you got, Jim?
I do two things, actually. I will surf YouTube and news sites like Google News, etc., with my browser in incognito mode, so I'm not recognized. I don't have the cookies on there or whatever. Because one of the things, a friend of mine who is really, really big into politics and running political campaigns, mostly on the left, did a talk at the Human Society for Greater Phoenix, showing how the same article could have radically different headlines, and then the articles will also have radically different slants depending on who the target audience is, even though the articles are on the same topic. So surfing in incognito mode for news is a really good way to kind of make sure they're not tailoring stuff to you too much. But the other tool that I use more than that now is Ground News. And I hate to shill for somebody who is not sponsoring us, but Ground News just does a wonderful job of telling you what the biases are, presenting stories that are in the blind spot for both the left and the right, and then also telling you, what the factuality is. So it's a good tool for doing exactly what you want to do. There are probably other tools that do it as well. Ground News is the only one that I know of, and so that's a big part of kind of like my morning stuff. I think that I do.
So, sorry to interrupt you there, Jim, but on that note too, we're both talking about reading news. I think reading is going to be way more critical than watching news. I almost never watch news anymore. If I am watching it, it's somebody reacting to news, but I always read my news. I think that's a big critical thing too when you're doing these comparisons. And of course, and you should probably follow this too, I never ever share news articles on social media that I have not completely read myself, ever, because you will look like a fool, and you will realize that maybe the thing you're looking at is not the story that you think it was. That always happens as well, right? I mean, so reading stuff in full, honestly, paying for a news site, whether it's New York Times or whatever you're into, divest accordingly, right, according to your beliefs. But honestly, a paid news source is always going to have a higher quality information than just free sources as well. So that's something to consider. But yeah, it all comes down to, at the end of the day, for echo chambers, the biggest thing for me is the news. It's how people are interpreting the lenses of stories that come out about these kinds of things, because that is what drives our politics more than anything. So there you go, Caleb. That's us talking for a lot there. What do you think?
No, I absolutely love it. I mean, I've definitely looked at or seen enough ads for the Ground News, something I've been interested in. But yeah, I mean, I think you guys nailed it. I didn't want to take too much y'all's time, but I just kind of had that thought that I wanted to get out there and hear that, the right way or one of the right ways to handle it possibly.
I love it. Any follow-ups? No, nothing. All good. You got your fill. Yeah, you got what you're looking for.
I think that's all good.
All right.
I feel great. I think you guys answered exactly what I was needing to know. So, again,
thank you, Caleb.
You guys.
So thank you so much. Appreciate you calling in. And yeah, that's our take on echo chambers there. Jim, any other thoughts on that conversation?
No. I just apologize for having to shill for a for-profit company, but they're the only ones that I know that actually make an attempt at figuring out what the bias is and letting you know where it stands. And also allowing you to look at what blind spots are there. And they do, the blind spot section is for both the left and the right. It's blind spots for the left and blind spots for the right.
Yeah, there's other sites. I mean, allsides.com is one that I was taught in school, right? As far as like figuring out what sources lean what. They like will do percentages, and I believe they update them as time goes by as well. So
Okay.
ground news, I think it gets pumped a lot because it's in ads and stuff. I've never used it myself. I can't speak for it, but there's some free tools as well that are out there for your understanding. But also, a mistake that gets brought up as well is that just that partisan news also like is 100% false all the time, which is like, I think that's a misconception that happens as well, where it's like, oh, just because Fox News is reporting something, that means that it's not real. That's not necessarily the case either. Although, I would rather go to other places before Fox, but it can tell you about what Fox News might think is important versus what other news outlets might think it's important, right? Like we were talking about in your story there, there's a market, right? News appeals to a market, and yet if you figure out what that market is, you'll figure out what the slant of stories tend to be. But anyway, that's what happens when you get somebody with a communications degree started talking. They just won't shut up because we only have so many skills, and so this is one of the things I can kind of have a conversation about. But anyway, great conversation. I loved it. Thank you, Caleb, for that call. Let's take our next caller here. We got Dan calling in from Canada. The Canadian Dan has called us once again. Welcome back to Truth Wanted, sir. How can we help you?
Hey, thank you very much, and congratulations.
Congratulations. Did I win something?
Partnerhood for the foreseeable future.
Oh, yeah, my marriage. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
I mean, it's no big deal. Dude. My bad.
No, it's good. It's just I didn't know, because like that happened a few weeks ago now. So I was like, I didn't know what you're talking about there. But thank you. It's been great so far. She hasn't wanted to divorce me yet, so I think we're doing okay. But anyway, how can we help you, Dan?
Well, I had a thought, given that the commercialization of space travel seems to be happening faster and faster.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably going to, as a species, see a new industry of space travel, mining, tourism, transportation, and end up with people spending long periods of time in orbit and deeper space as, technology advances. Do you think the human species will have a speciation event?
Absolutely.
Evolutionary change?
Absolutely, without a doubt. And the first change will be epigenetic, because if you stay in space long enough, your bones will get brittle enough you can't come back to Earth because they will break and shatter and do nasty things under gravity. But yeah, the environment affects how we do things. I thought The Expanse did a really, really good job of highlighting some of those differences with folks living, spacers living in the asteroid, the belters, being taller and thinner than the average human, and some of those other differences. But yeah, once the environment radically changes, like it would from going, just living in space, much less living on a different planet, that environment's very different. So of course we're going to adapt. I think that is something we'll definitely see.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at this book series because there's a series of books that like literally talking about this whole topic of how basically aliens come and wipe us out, and then there's these different colonies of humans and how they change and adapt over time. And like, yeah, over enough period of time, it just has to happen. Evolution will keep its course. How that exists and what changes will be made, of course, we can only speculate. But yeah, I mean, it's not like evolution just stops just because we're here, it's going to keep happening. So yeah, I think that's a solved one there, Dan.
Well, I mean, maybe not the most thought out, but
You have your doubts. What are your doubts here?
I'm wondering at what point we would just decide that it's easier for a large swath of the society we have to not return home.
To not return home.
I'm not sure that's a decision that will get made. I think it's a decision that biology will tell us. Because, like I said, you can stay in space long enough that you can't return. It has nothing to do with politics or anything like that. It has to do with the way space affects the human body.
True.
Well, I mean, I understand the environmental factors. I'm just saying, I guess it would be more of a societal shift where, like, as long as we're rotating people through, they only be exposed to microgravity for a period of time. Would we eventually decide that it's just not worth it to keep bringing them back? Or would we voluntarily go, you know what, I'm just not coming back and I'm taking a whole bunch of people with me?
All of the above.
Yeah, I mean,
I hate to be that
there could
guy,
be a
but yeah, all of the
secessionist
above.
movement that happens, right? Of like, hey, we're a space colony and we don't want to be a part of the rest of you guys, and we're staying out there, and then suddenly you have a separate population of people. I don't know, just as an idea.
I suppose there might be some politics in the future. I mean, we're almost done with politics now, so.
We are. I think you can look at when the New World was discovered, when the Americas were discovered, and all the reasons people had to leave Europe and travel to a foreign country and then keep exploring all the way across the West. You could also look at, that's a little bit more recent, and we have more news and more concrete stuff about that than we do about what brought the Native Americans across the land bridge into a country, into a territory they didn't know. I think we'll have people who want to explore just for the sake of exploring. We'll have people who are like, this is it, I want to build my own society. We'll see that because we saw that, right? I mean, that seems to be human nature. So I think it's all the above, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that.
Dan, I found the book I was talking about. It's called All Tomorrows, A Billion-Year Chronicle of the Myriad Species and Mixed Fortunes of Man. That's it. It's a speculative evolution book that talks about, these different hypothetical scenarios that humans can change and evolve into, even as different, starting as early as human beings colonizing Mars and then separating from Earth from there, and aliens get involved. It's a whole thing. Really cool. You should check it out.
I will, and I'll probably come back with more questions. But
heck yeah.
No,
they got people talking about it on YouTube as well. It kind of blew up a couple of years ago on YouTube. That's how I first found out about it. So, there's videos. You don't have to read if you don't want to. Anyway. Anything else we can help you with, Dan?
Say reading was important.
Reading is important. Reading news. I don't know about reading science fiction books. I mean, arguably also important, but maybe less. I don't know. It's kind of hard to judge these things.
Most of my morals have come from reading science fiction and fantasy.
Yeah, Gene Roddenberry might disagree with me. I'm just saying, I don't know. You got to make up your own mind on that, Dan. I can't tell you what to do there.
All right. Well, I will probably check out the book in one form or another. Thank you both for your speculations on my strange question.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan, for calling into tonight's program. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. And folks, we are getting kind of at the end of this show here. I want to thank Jimothy Barrows for joining me today. Thank you. I shouldn't call you Jimothy. I actually don't know if you're okay with that. I don't like it when people mix up my name with other stuff. So I should do that to you, Jim. Sorry about that. Jim Barrows, thanks so much for being on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been fun. Been a lot of fun.
And if people want to find you, where should they go?
You can look for me on Atheist Experience. I'm on other shows periodically as well, depending on, I've been on the line a couple of times. Sometimes I'm Talk Heathen, and then very occasionally here. And then I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Blue Sky as well. So.
How is that? You enjoying Blue Sky? I still haven't actually gone on there.
It is so much nicer than Twitter.
Maybe I'll check it out. Anyway,
fear Nazis.
Okay, that's sure. I'm with you there. For our whoa, hang on, let me reorganize myself here. We need to talk about our prompt again, and before we do that, I need to thank the awesome, amazing Kelly for being our backup host tonight. Thank you so much, backup host Kelly Laughlin.
I just want to thank you for recognizing that I am awesome and amazing.
Yes. That's sure, absolutely.
And you really don't like it when people mix up your name, like I can never call you D'Anthony or something like that?
I don't like it when people say like Daniel or that kind of thing.
Okay, but D'Anthony's okay? Like you just did Jimothy?
D'Anthony?
Yeah.
Sure. Kelly, you have the D'Anthony card. You can call me D'Anthony. I'll give you that. That's just for you. Okay.
Cool. Oh, so anyway, goofing around here. The prompt for next week is name something that people worry about too much. I could think of a million things too.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Definitely. So leave your comment below for that if you want your comment read next week, maybe. Thank you, Kelly, for helping us wrap up tonight's show. And Jim, on Truth Wanted, I like to ask my guests about words of wisdom. Do you have any words of wisdom to give our audience before we close out tonight's program?
Maybe. I don't know how wise it is. I think this technological age, we just need to remember that all hardware sucks, all software sucks. People make mistakes.
All hardware sucks, all software sucks. People make mistakes. All right. I will leave you folks at home with that. I'm Objectively Dan. This has been another episode of Truth Wanted. Remember to always keep wanting the truth, and I'll see you next time.
Watch the non-profits and join the hosts in the live chat. Visit tiny.cc/ytnp.